Systemic abuse, inhumane living conditions, inmates overpowering guards, and a violent disregard for human rights are just a few words thrown around when talking about these upcoming prisons. A sentence here is almost a guarantee that you'll only leave in a body bag. Here are the top 10 brutal prisons on Earth. Number 10. Bakir Prison in Turkey. For many years, Amnesty International has received an alarming amount of allegations of torture in Bakir Prison in Turkey. In the 1980s, Bakir went through what history calls the period of barbarity and the hell of Bakir. Even the Ottoman Empire during the 19th century spoke of how dangerous Bakir prison was, fearing the harsh sentences that political prisoners were given. Systemic torture is the most horrific concern. Number 9. Lawsont Prison in France. A quarter of the inmate population are mentally ill, another quarter are drug addicts, and most are infected with AIDS. This is France's most dangerous prison, one that's so shrouded in horror that people would rather take their own lives than getting sentenced there to the rat and cockroach-infested hell. Not only is the suicide rate 7 times higher than normal prisons in France, but abuse from guards, self-mutilation, rape, and drug abuse are commonplace. If the inmates cause trouble or get rowdy, the guards solve the problem by throwing gas into their cells. Number 8. Bangkok Prison, Thailand. The Bangkok Hilton isn't referring to the actual hotel, but the Bangkok Prison, a place where dementors sucking out your soul would be merciful. The thing about Bangkok Prison, other than the fact that it's holding 8,000 prisoners, despite the original 3,500 inmates it was designed for, is how chillingly easy it is to get thrown in there and have the prison's notorious shackles welded to your legs. Not only does this house Thailand's worst and most dangerous criminals, but severely underfunded and overcrowded, the place is infested with rats and maggots. Prisoners report having no running water most of the time, a failing sewage system, both problems leading to health issues within the population. American and British visitors who have been sentenced to Bangkok Prison for minor drug offenses have reported receiving maggot-infested foods of trays. No one is spared from the violence of Bangkok, not even elderly, pregnant, or mentally ill inmates. Number 7. Patak Island Prison in Russia. Does anyone remember how notorious the prison Alcatraz was? Well, the US version has long been closed, but this is the Alcatraz of Russia, Patak Island. And like that famous prisoner breakout story of the US Alcatraz when 3 inmates escaped by swimming away, the only way out of Patak Island is to swim across the freezing waters of White Lake. Only here, the guards will shoot any suspicious movement. Inside, luxuries include the most basic of human needs. Prisoners are so deprived of basic human rights such as bathrooms and medical facilities that half of them have tuberculosis. For 22.5 hours of the day, the inmates are locked in 2-man cells. Each year, they're only allowed 2 visitors, adding to the psychological torture. Punishments for misbehaving include getting locked up in a small, dark room for 15 days with only a wooden perch to rest on and a metal bucket. As a psychologist once described Patak Island, this place destroys people. The first 9 months or so they spend adapting. After 3 or 4 years, their personalities begin to deteriorate. There is no way anyone can spend 25 years in a place like this without being psychologically destroyed. Number 6. La Modela Prison in Colombia. In 2016, the dismembered remains of at least 100 prisoners and visitors were found in La Modela's drain pipes, and that's just the prelude to how horrific this Colombian prison is. It's said that the inmates are the ones carrying the weapons, not the guards. The prison is divided into gangs, all with easy access to weapons, including guns and grenades. Number 5. Black Dolphin Prison in Russia. The Black Dolphin Prison in Sol-Ileksk, Orenburg, Russia, is where all the cannibals, serial killers, terrorists, and murderers of Russia go. For 16 hours a day, prisoners are forbidden from resting or even sitting while they're in their isolated cells. 4 times a day, they get fed just soup. To further add to the degradation of human rights, the guards transport the inmates by blindfolding them and holding their shackled hands behind their backs as they walk them nearly bent over. Number 4. Pinal D Gracia, El Salvador. The prison housing one of the most dangerous gangs in the world, Maracaibo, Pinal D Gracia not only houses dangerous members of the gangs, but they also run it. They're the ones running basic facilities, all the bakeries, the hospital, and the guards. The guards themselves actually rarely enter the prison because the guards' prisoner to ratio is a horrifying 1 to 50. Number 3. USP Florence, ADX, USA. When it comes to ADX Florence, words like hell on earth, isolation, psychological torture, and despair are thrown around. ADX is the home that houses nearly every single worst criminal that passes U.S. borders, with no other prison can control them. Your cellmate might be Eric Rudolph, the Olympic bomber, or it might be a notorious gang leader, a domestic or foreign terrorist, or just a plain psycho serial killer. One of the former wardens of ADX revealed that the prison is just a cleaner version of hell. And if you don't believe him, then take the words of the Olympic bomber himself, who said that ADX is meant to inflict misery and pain. It seems that ADX was designed to drive prisoners insane. 23 hours of the day is spent in solitary confinement from both other prisoners and guards. The 1 hour of the day that they're left out is what counts as their law-required exercise, which is just a concrete pit that they circle around. Prisoners ended up succumbing to the isolation and psychological torture and have delusional conversations with voices in their heads. The isolation leads to violence, and some reports of prisoners hurling their own feces at guards. Number 2. Karendra Penitentiary, Brazil. One of the worst prisons in the history of the modern world is a stain on history and the site of a chilling massacre. One of the largest human rights violations in the history of Brazil took place in Karendra Penitentiary, which was built in 1920. By the end of the 20th century, the prison was so severely overcrowded that it passed the stage of being dangerous with 8,000 prisoners versus 1,000 prison officers. The inmates lived by their own rules. Violence, commonplace malnutrition, diseases and injuries were some of the horrific things the inmates suffered through. Most of them also suffered from HIV and types of easily transmittable diseases. Those and the injuries prisoners sustained were treated by minimal medical staff, almost always without the use of painkillers, because the chief medical director was too scared for his life to enter the prison for years. It wasn't until 1992, over a century of this prison's repeatedly and systematically violating human rights, that the violence came to a crescendo. A violent riot broke out that ended with the death of 111 prisoners. The police didn't want to negotiate with the prisoners, with the riots spreading across the prison, so the military was sent to storm the prison and massacre the inmates, even those who have already surrendered. The prison ended up being shut down, especially after a physician who had worked there revealed its horrors. Now it's open as a museum to view the low points of humanity. Number 1. The Maracaibo National Prison, Sabantina Prison, Venezuela. The gateway to the fifth circle of hell, as Venezuela's former president Hugo Chavez called it. La Sabenta is a prison that's so out of control that dismemberments, beheadings, fires, and riots regularly occur. Most of the other prisons we mentioned suffered from abuse from the guards, but La Sabenta's danger factor comes from Venezuela's most dangerous gangs that are locked inside. The guards are there all right, but there's a 1 to 150 prisoner to guard ratio, since the prison has long passed its maximum capacity of 700 prisoners and into over 3,700. This overcrowdedness has caused extremely dangerous and filthy living conditions, but the frequent riots are what people are most concerned about. The prison was set afire in 1994 by a group of inmates who proceeded to shoot and stab other inmates who tried to escape it. When the police tried to intervene, the death toll was over 150. 2013 saw the murder of 69 prisoners. Whenever there was a raid, massive amounts of weapons and drugs were discovered, along with grenades, assault rifles, and horrifically enough, endangered animals. And these are the most brutal prisons we have for you today. What do you think of these prisons? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and before you go, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to Weeklypedia and click that notification bell to be alerted whenever we upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.